Released in 2015, The Witcher 3 is an action role-playing game that presents the player with an immensely huge world to explore, with an array of missions that can be undertaken. Most are relevant to the plot and others purely side activities, but they still manage to feel integral to the overall experience. Players take the role of Geralt, a monster hunter known throughout the kingdom as the Witcher, who is tasked with tracking down his adopted daughter from the clutches of an otherworldly force known as the Wild Hunt. Throughout the journey, you will come to possess a generous amount of different weapons, magic, and skills that can all be leveled up through the incredibly intricate progression system. Gameplay wise, everything is presented simply with a great learning curve that slowly eases in new players to the series, and with a stock of melee attacks at your disposal, as well as a handy dodge and counter, the combat manages to feel very fluid, allowing you to experiment in order to find a style that suits you best. If you still haven't played this one, now is the perfect time. Undertale is an RPG that sees the player take up the role of a child who has fallen into a place buried deep underneath the earth. It's your job to try and find your way back to the surface, with the path being riddled with a huge variety of monsters and colourful characters to meet. Now, my favourite aspect of Undertale has to be its combat system that sees you dodging projectiles sent out by the enemy in what can be one of the most stressful but at the same time rewarding parts of the game. Upon defeating an enemy, you are presented with the option to spare them or take them out, with your actions affecting the outcome of the various characters and narrative dialogue that comprises the experience. If you're looking for a well thought out RPG, then Undertale has got you covered. Developed by From Software, released in 2015, Bloodborne is a third-person action role-playing game that introduces us to the Gothic city of Yharnam that has been devastated due to a disease that has affected its population. Ultimately, it is your job to make your way through the city to overcome the various beasts and monsters in the hope of finding the source of the epidemic. With the gameplay focused on weapon-based combat and exploration, there is a lot to learn and see, and learning really is the order of the day when it comes to Bloodborne. The difficulty throughout the experience can become excruciating at points. It will really test your patience, but also reward those willing to take the time to learn and understand the intricacies of its gameplay. With a generous array of weapons, items, enemies and bosses, there is always something just around the corner to keep you on your toes. Originally released for the PlayStation 3 in 2012, that game company's incredibly moving adventure journey made the move to the PlayStation 4 in 2014, taking control of a hooded figure with the objective being to reach a mountain in the distance that sees you crossing various vast landscapes and interacting with the environment in order to progress. What made the experience so special for us was the opportunity of coming across another player on the same journey. This happened only a handful of times throughout the adventure, and with the only form of communication being that of a musical chime, a sort of trust is built between players as they make their way to the mountain on the horizon. With an enchanting world and intriguing plot, and with it also available for such a cheap price, there has never been a better time to jump in. The highly anticipated conclusion to the Uncharted series was unleashed in 2016 and quickly became one of the most essential games for the PlayStation 4. You take up the role of Nathan Drake as he is yet again dragged back into the world of treasure hunting, featuring a huge cast of characters from the series past as well as a few new. Uncharted 4 manages to deliver one of the most satisfying narratives that sees you travelling the world in search of a lost treasure. What makes this outing stand out from its predecessors is the inclusion of much larger playing environments that offer up a lot more freedom when it comes to both combat and exploration, opening up to allow more stealth-centric approaches as well as the use of vehicles in some sections that help you traverse the impressive areas. The gameplay largely remains the same from what we've come to know and love from the series, with the exception of a few new tricks such as the grappling hook that adds a fresh take on traversing locations, and the ability to mark enemies, making stealth all the more viable when it comes to reacting to each situation. Set 9 years after the events of the previous adventure Ground Zeroes, the Phantom Pain once again sees us following Big Boss in his struggle against the rise of a deadly organization known as Cypher. Taking many aspects from Peace Walker, the Phantom Pain is split up into a series of missions that can be undertaken at will by the player. With a narrative spanning many hours and a generous choice of side missions to complete, there is plenty to keep you busy throughout the journey. Gameplay wise, the Phantom Pain truly shines and offers up one of the most robust experiences available available on the PS4. The insane amount of freedom given to the player is what makes the experience truly special. You're open to approach each mission as you please, may that be prioritizing stealth or an all-out attack. Mother Base also makes a return, as well as the intricate upgrading system that rewards the player with various new weapons and items to use in the field. MGS5 is one of the essential games for the PlayStation 4 and deserves a place in your library. Set in the modern-day Tokyo, Persona 5 is an RPG that was released for both the PS3 and 4. It manages to tackle some serious issues throughout the duration of its narrative that can last up to 100 hours, and that's not even including the astonishing amount of extra content, such as character relationship arcs and optional quests that litter the world. Combat takes on a turn-based nature, with each character bringing their own unique abilities and functions to each battle, as well as personas that are essentially manifestations of the character's psyche. A huge amount of variation is possible, with the opportunity to capture new personas in battle and merge them with others, resulting in some very unique outcomes that can contribute to your party's effectiveness. In my opinion, Persona 5 is one of the best RPGs on the PS4, and one that definitely deserves a look. God of War for the PlayStation 4 is a huge departure from what we've come to know and love about the series, instead opting for a more narrative-focused experience that sees Kratos joined by his son, set out to fulfill a promise made to his wife. Whereas Greek mythology played a huge part in the series past, a new focus upon Norse mythology is present within the game, introducing us to many new gods along the way. The brutal combat the franchise is known for survives intact, albeit presented in a different way. The action now takes place from an over-the-shoulder perspective, providing an even more intense feel to the combat. Kratos now uses an axe as his main weapon, known as the Leviathan. It is infused with the elemental power of ice, with both a standard and heavy attack, as well as the option to upgrade it through the use of runes that grant it special abilities. If you're looking for a compelling adventure that really pushes the PS4 to its limit, God of War manages to tick all of the boxes, making it one of the PlayStation 4's best titles. An enhanced version of the original outing on the PlayStation 3, The Last of Us Remastered retains everything that made the original so great and manages to further expand upon it by adding in PS4 specific features such as improved visuals and frame rate, as well as various tweaks to the formula that help set it apart. Set in an apocalyptic environment after the world has succumbed to a fungus that has an adverse effect upon humans, mutating them into grotesque monsters. You take up the role of Joel, who is tasked with escorting a girl known as Ellie to a mysterious organization known as the Fireflies. Combat plays out incredibly well, with the controls and gunplay both feeling tight, as well as the urgency of the crafting system that only manages to add to the tension with each encounter. Grand Theft Auto 5 follows the lives of 3 protagonists that can be switched between on the fly, most notably from different walks of life. The intertwining narrative is one of the standout aspects of the experience and will surely stay with you for some time. The PS4 version brings with it updated visuals and a more robust frame rate, as well as the inclusion of the incredible first-person mode, which adds an immense amount of immersion to the experience. But where Rockstar's flagship sandbox truly shines is with its never-ending online mode that is home to a whole host of different features and activities that can be undertaken both alone or with friends. Grand Theft Auto 5 is the culmination of a series that spans many years. The amount there is to do and see is breathtaking.